It's the Sports Peninsula Podcast. Coming up, September 19th, 2023 is the official national release date for the Silverlight Press publication, A Run to the River, chronicling the 2013 Division V state championship journey by author and coach Ron Glodich. In leading up to the book release, we're going to look back at how the Marine City Mariner football program evolved into one of the best in the state of Michigan, with special guests and former head coaches Bob Staskiewcz and Tony Scarcelli. We'll also discuss how the program was reestablished and built into perennial state championship contenders. Now here is your Sports Peninsula team. Welcome, everybody, to the Sports Peninsula Podcast. My name is Dave Drzinski-Drew, and it's Monday, August 14th, and I am joined by Coach Andy Shield, the Marine City Mariners. Coach, how you feeling?
Drew, doing well. This is an episode that's very near and dear, and we have 5 Marine City Mariners on this episode, so it's going to be a great one.
This is true. We are here to talk about the new book, A Run to the River, by author and former head coach Ron Glodich, which is being released nationally on September 19th, and we're very excited about that. And Coach, you know, it's a special program, it's a special story, and we're really looking forward to talking about it. And I know the book really centers around the 2013 state championship season, but there's more to it than that. And what we're here to talk about today is really how the culture got established, in essence. And when you establish a culture, you know, things don't happen overnight, right? They take some time. So we have really 3 special guests. Of course, our author, Coach Ron Glodich. We have a couple other special guests too as well. And Coach, I'd really like for you to do the introductions, please.
Well, hey, you know, like you said, we have the Mount Rushmore of Marine City football, which is Coach Bob Staskiewcz, Coach Tony Scarcelli, and Coach Ron Glodich. That's just unequivocally. There's a lot of people that have touched the program. These 3 gentlemen are the faces of it and will be for some time to come. Coach Bob Staskiewcz came to Marine City from Deckerville High School in 1987. He established a 149-39 record at Marine City in his 18 years as the head coach. 13 playoff appearances, 7 league titles, 8 district titles, and 1 regional title. As stated before, he developed Deckerville into the winning program that it still is today, that is led also by the players that he led while he was with the Eagles. He was there from 1976 to 1986. He was inducted into the Michigan High School Football Coaches Association Hall of Fame in 2002, having worked at Marine City, Deckerville, Beale City, and Coleman. He is the cultural leader and the godfather of Marine City football. He led the cultural transformation and developed the program into a perennial league and conference champion, as well as a state playoff contender year in, year out. He's the esteemed developer of Coach Scarcelli, Coach Glodich, Coach Darren Letson, the current head coach of Marine City football, Bill Brown and the staff at Deckerville High School, and Bill Nesbitt, who was at South Lake and is the winningest all-time head coach at St. Clair High School. Coach Bob Staskiewcz was my head coach and somebody that I'm extremely proud to still represent today. Coach Tony Scarcelli was the defensive coordinator during that era. Following Coach Bob Staskiewicz's retirement, he became the head coach and ran a 79-9 record in his 7 years as head coach. As stated before, he was the defensive coordinator from 1986 to 2004, 21 playoff appearances as a coach at Marine City, 7 league titles, 6 district titles, 3 regional titles as head coach. He was the head coach of the 2007 Division IV state champions and 2011 Division IV runner-ups. He was a 2014 inductee into the Michigan High School Football Coaches Association Hall of Fame, having worked at Marine City, Warren Woods Tower, and Grosse Pointe North. He was also a state champion as a player, as a captain 2-way starter on the Warren Woods Warrior 1978 Class B state champions. He also played defensive line for the only consensus Big Ten champion. That was a Big Ten conference with 10 teams, and they beat up the 9 that weren't the Illinois Fighting Illini. He helped establish the modern foundation of the program and successfully led Marine City to the first state title, an unprecedented success. Coach Ron Glodich, the author of Run to the River, had a 69-20 record in his 8 years as Marine City head coach, but moreover was the offensive coordinator from 1990 to 2011. He had 27 playoff appearances, 3 state final appearances as a coach at Marine City High School, 6 league titles, 2 district titles, 2 regional titles, and was the head coach of the 2013 Division IV state champions. He was a 2017 inductee into the Michigan High School Football Coaches Association, hailing all of his coaching tenure from Marine City High School. He has coached at Marine City from 1987 to 2020, leading the Marine City High School football program, boys basketball program, baseball, girls volleyball, all to league championships. He evolved the program and continued high-level success amid massive enrollment decline at Marine City. And it is my pleasure and humble honor to announce these 3 gentlemen are with us today. Coach Bob, Coach Scar, Coach G. Welcome to the Sports Peninsula podcast, guys.
Hey, it's great to see you, Andy.
Yeah, thanks for having us, bud.
Well, it's great.
This is a pleasure for me. This is.
Yep.
Well, Andy, you're way too kind to all of us, to be honest with you.
Well, I was probably a little kinder to you than you were to me, maybe when I was a teenager. But honestly, guys, I'm here today because my life is what it is today because of my experience at Marine City High School. I just took it. My last day in that uniform was November 16th, 1991. I have that. It's a memory. It was at Tecumseh High School. And that right then and there, I made the determination I wasn't going to be done with this. I was going to come back, and I'm just lucky enough to be around it. So, guys, thanks so much for coming. Drew, thank you for moderating and doing this. This is something else. I'm a little bit nervous. I can go on here, and typically I'm not, but I am a little bit nervous right now. So, it's just good. Good nerves are a good thing.
Yeah, if you're not nervous, you don't care, right? But
That's
at the end of this is really, when I look at coaching trees like this, and I'm just thinking about it. I think of U of M right away. Bo to Mo to Lloyd from 69 to 04. Look at the Steelers from 69 to the present day. 3 head coaches. That's it. So from 87 to 2020, I mean, you 3 were the guys, and that's phenomenal. I mean, it's difficult to do because establishing a culture is difficult, but changing a culture is even more difficult. And really, Coach Bob, and when you came in, I mean, we'd like to lead off with you. So what really led you to Marine City when you came in?
Well, I think there were a lot of factors. First of all, it was a great league, and they had obviously Marysville. That was a dominant team, so I think that was a challenge. The size of the school, we came from a smaller school, and then we had great kids. We just, you're limited on numbers, facilities. And I think is accumulation of a lot of things, but that for the most part, I think the competition and everything really kind of intrigued me. And, I'm just lucky I got the job and had a great time. And when I got to meet these guys, you got to remember, these guys were single when I met them.
Some in their 20s. Yeah. Well, Coach Scar, you came first. You actually came in January of 1986. I think you were one of the first people, athletic director and assistant principal working team, actually ever. That was one of his first official acts in that role. Had you ever heard of Marine City before that?
No, my dad used to take us fishing in Algonac when we were younger, but I'd never heard of Marine City. But, before we move on to what, us 3 together, what you got to remember, and Ron and Bob will attest to this. I mean, if Jerry Workentine doesn't put his ego aside and hire 3 guys that got a lot of energy and want to take this program over, I mean, Jerry had a lot of successes last year, made it the state semis, and then he starts hiring us guys. And, there are guys out there that won't want the guy to follow them to do a better job or to excel. There are guys like that, but Jerry put his ego aside and he hired guys that he had a vision that would do a good job, and he established that program. One thing Jerry did a great job was, I think, because I did coach 1 year with Tim Carlson after Jerry left, was we had tough kids, and I could tell the way those kids practiced and the drills they did that Jerry had really ingrained toughness into these kids. And I think Bob and Ron can both agree that I don't know what kind of size we're going to get every year, what kind of speed we're going to get every year, but we have tough kids every year, and that's been like that for 35 years.
He really had a much steeper build. He inherited Lipa's curse, which, what Lipa's curse is, there's people that don't know this anymore because this was so long ago. There was a guy by the name of Harpo Lipa in Marine City. And, there was a coaching staff when Coach Winnekainen had left, and it was kind of being run by assistant coaches who had gotten their opportunity to do things, and things were kind of dragging along. And Harpo Lipa was not a guy that was really, a guy that exuded a lot of team qualities, let's say. I've talked with some old timers that, Bill Amy drug him out of a driver's ed class by his hair once. Harpo Lipa was not a guy that I think, showed a lot of respect to people. He told Coach Mike Craze that he would never win a game again. Harpo was right. They went 3 years without winning a game. And then Coach Workentine came and built the Mariners back up. And it took a lot of the 1970s to do that. By the time they got to the 80s, things were starting to trend in the right direction. So, that is very, very, very true. Coach Workentine and that 1985 team really, we got to the semifinals. We beat Marysville that year. The only loss was to Benedictine High School, which that in 1986 we beat at Benedictine with Derek Alexander. That was a great football team and really got the kids and the community thinking that we can do this.
Yeah, I got hired in, and then Tim Carlson was Jerry's defense coordinator. He took the head coaching job to coach with him and Bill Amy. It was just the three of us, and we did all right. We were 7-2. We lost the game to Algonac. There's no way we should have lost to. Marysville was a good team. Obviously, they won a state championship that year, but we gave them a good game. And then in the offseason, Jerry put the job out there because Tim Carlson was going to be an administrator, and I applied for it, but there was no way. Realistically, I was ready for it. I'd been a position coach and I knew one side of the ball. And Bob was definitely, he was the man for the job. There's no doubt there. And I knew that the first day I met him, that he was the right guy for the job.
I don't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Coach.
No, I just wanted to reiterate what Tony said about Jerry. Not only was he really took Marine City's program from the ashes, but when he became athletic director, he did anything and everything he could for you. He was totally supportive. And like Tony said, we got 3 new people into the community, and he just was so positive and so energetic, and he wanted us to succeed and gave us everything possible he could.
That's fantastic, Coach. Coach Glodich, I'd like to ask you something. This book centers around the 2013 championship, but this story that we're talking about today, how this culture got established, that's a big part of this, right? Oh, 1 second, Coach. We had you muted. Pause. Sorry about that. There we go.
There we go. That's okay. Hey, Coach Bob and I came in the same year, and entire district. So I really knew nothing about East China. I knew nothing about Marine City, but this little bus ride, and he was an incredible speaker. The thoughts that flowed out of his mouth had me just listening on edge there. And then we actually went on strike. So my first year teaching, Coach Bob's first year at Marine City, we're on strike. We still got paid, and I remember I'm delivering donuts that whole first week. The first year we're on strike there. So I started my coaching and teaching career on strike at Marine City. And luckily, Coach Bob, immediately took me under his wing and was starting to share stuff and ask questions. And like Tony said, it was crystal clear that, he was going to take information from all of us, and he was going to, start moving us in the right direction.
Well, try moving to China Township. And having no relatives, no friends around there. My whole family was like, huh, what? Where are you going? It's like, well, I didn't know. I was 4.5 years old, but yeah, it's but you know what? It's on the map now. I'll talk to people. I live in Canton. I've worked in Detroit and everything. people know where Marine City is because of what you guys did, and they did not know about it before that. And it's really the football program is what really has been kind of the cornerstone of people recognizing the community. And it's amazing to me how much it's built up even since I've left. And I've been gone for about 20 years, but I go back a couple of times a year, and it's really nice. It's so nice. It was nice then, but it's even nicer now. And it's just amazing. But
it was my calling card on getting my first coaching job. I mean, that's what I said. I played at Marine City, and they at Portage Northern, he was filling his staff up with guys that were from Berrien Springs that had won down there, from Martin High School, which is a good football program out that way, especially during that time, filling up guys. And then with me, that was a big part of me getting to go over to Portage Northern and start coaching over there, was from Marine City.
Oh,
Coach Bob, you arrived. You were here in 1987. We went 7-2. It was a good first. Things were clicking along. We went that 8-1 team, and in 1985, like Coach Scarcelli said in 1986, went 7-2 and lost to one of those losses to the state champion Vikings, and then we went 7-2 once again in 1987. After that year, did you see a potential for things to continue down the line to be what you wanted it to be here?
Oh, absolutely. What I saw was that I looked at our schedule, and I saw our first 2 years, game 9, we're playing Lake Orion for 2 years. And then the third year we're playing Clarkston. So I thought, coming through a kind of a brutal schedule, it'll be very interesting how our kids hold up. But we beat Lake Orion our first year, lost a close one in the second year, and they went to the semis, and then we ended up beating Clarkston. So I knew how tough these kids were. It was just a matter of just a lot of little things that we had to do in order to get things, even better than we were.
We went 2-1 in those 2 games.
Yes, we
beat
did.
Lake Orion the first year. We barely lost the second time, 13-7 on a drive. And then we beat Dugan Fife, quarterback Dugan Fife at Clarkston, Coach Richardson, and they came to East China Stadium, and we beat them week 9. And that led into the next year, which we went to the playoffs for for the second time in program history, first time, in the run of this regime. I can remember those games. I was young. I was a 9th and 10th grader when those games took place. So I played against Clarkston's JV team. We're playing these guys. We're used to playing somebody like, Woodhaven or something like that, or, whoever would just take us. And, on week 9, Detroit Benedictine, Lutheran East and Lutheran North were always on the schedule.
Right.
And those kinds of things. And we're competing with these teams. That was certainly great. Coach Glodich, we had talked, just about.
Okay, I can hear that.
You hearing me better now?
Yeah. So it's cutting in and out, but I think I understand the question. If I had opportunities to go anywhere else,
That's right.
One of the opportunities I had was after our 2007 at Notre Dame Prep, just to keep. And Coach Bob was very supportive. Every time I had a thought of maybe interviewing somewhere, he was very supportive and said, "Yeah, I'll put a call in for you. I'll do what you can." And this one I kind of did on my own. I didn't give him any heads up on this one. But anyways, Notre Dame Prep offered me their head coaching job after the 2007 state championship. And at the time, I was nearing the top of the scale at East China, and I thought there's no way that they could match my salary. So I said, thank you, but no thank you. I don't think you can come close to my salary. Well, what happened is that they have, a system there that is based on, they have their parochial pay, but also they have some donors that might kick in. Make a long story short, they were going to give my kids free tuition. They were going to, pretty much match my salary. And then also they were going to give me an apartment. Said that the drive was an issue. I was concerned about having too far of a drive, and they said they'd give me an apartment for a year or two. And that was something that I have no regrets about. I'm so grateful that I decided to stay.
Coach Scarcelli, did you encounter anything like that? Do you have any opportunities that you ever considered?
Yeah, in the late 90s, I interviewed at West Bloomfield, and I had a couple interviews there, and I think they're really close to offering me the job, but I told them the only way I'm coming, my wife had just got done finishing, getting her teaching certificate. And I told them the only way I'm going to come is if they give her a job. And jobs weren't as plentiful as they are now, and they couldn't guarantee that. So I left it at that. But that was really the only one. And I don't know, I think like Ron, it would have been tough only because, God darn, Ron's was after that we wanted to state champions, but I just knew we were knocking on the door, and it would have been tough to just give that up. We had turned it over on Marysville and flipped the switch, so that would have been tough to give up at that time. And that was the only way I would have taken the job, is if they would have given her a job.
That makes sense. One thing I wanted to ask you, Coach Scarcelli, because I actually, when you won the state title in 2007, I was at the game. I made the trip, and it was like having a class reunion at Chelly's across the street there. First 2 hours before, it was like, it's like a tailgate over there, and we go into the stadium. The atmosphere was just great. But what stood out to me, and I'd like for you to tell me about it if you would. Coach Bob, you were on the sidelines there, and Coach Scarcelli, I saw right after the game, you went right to Coach Bob and gave him a huge hug. I mean, what was that moment like?
I think it's just, God damn, we finally did it, because like I said, we had knocked on the door so many times, and you look at those teams we had in 99, 2000, 2001, we ran into Orchard Lake. We make one bad play against Monroe Jefferson in the semis, and just so many opportunities, and it did, between the three of us, and I don't know, that was the state championship for everybody. That's just my feeling. I mean, I may have been the head coach at the time, but that was just because all the hard work that us three and a bunch of other guys put in. It was just finally nice to validate our program. And that's what's so great about when in 2013, when we did it again, and then we've been there 2 other times. If you're there 4 times and you win twice in a school district like ours, God darn, we're doing a good job. Us and the kids are doing a good job, because that's not easy.
No,
Definitely not.
And I'm from there. I very comfortably can.
I'd like to share a story if I could.
Absolutely.
So Bob may not remember this. He may, and I've talked about it before, but early, maybe 5-6 years into our coaching tenure together, we were at Gord's Bar, and I don't know what time of the year it was, but I specifically remember Coach Bob and I were sitting across from each other at a table, and we're just talking about Mariner football like we always did. And he just looked me in the eye and he said, "Ron, if this coaching staff stays together, I really believe we can win a state championship." And I'll never forget that conversation. And, you talked about reasons maybe why I left or why I didn't leave. And that conversation to me, we had a job to do. We had a mission that we wanted to accomplish. And, Coach Bob saw it early on that if we stayed together and if we continued to build this thing together, that he was very confident that we could. I didn't know any better, I'm a young coach. I didn't know any better, but that was one of the main.
Well, my 2 varsity years were the 1990 and 1991 seasons, and we lost in the regional finals in each one of those years. We lost to Tyrone Wheatley when I was a junior, and then we lost to Tecumseh when I was a senior. I really think if somehow Tyrone doesn't play in that game, that's the luck that would have taken for. Well, I mean, it just, he was. He's one of the icons in state history as far as a player. If he doesn't play, we play Monroe St. Mary's Catholic Central the next week. In the state semifinal at that time, that's what it would have been. And I know this is speculation. Every guy in their era, can do the Al Bundy stuff where they get better and better and better through the years as the years go on. But I think we had a chance if we got him through Robichaud. I just so happened to have kind of hang out with a guy at Western down the road that played for Harrison, played for John Harrington, and was a 1992 graduate. They won the state championship. They beat Tecumseh the week after we lost to Tecumseh, and then went on to win the state championship. Oxford gave them everything. They gave him all the film, all the stuff that they had that they had given to John Harrington down at Farmington Hills Harrison. They just didn't understand. They conceptually did not know what they were going to do in stopping the wing T. They didn't. They didn't. They couldn't account for Bobby Donaldson. They couldn't account for Dennis Hall. They couldn't account for David Volkman or whoever. If we had Andy Cottrell or Ryan Dunn at halfback, they couldn't account for him. So they were going to struggle in that football game. Who knows what happens with that team? And in that year, I played. We had a good 8th grade team. We went 1-8 when I was in 9th grade, and we beat Armada 6-2. That was the victory. Then we went 4-4-1 when I was in JV. And then by the time we were seniors, we were, regional finalists. So, and this has kind of been the trend of that program. So, I mean, my years were very, very reflective of what were kind of the next push. And I was at Clintondale for 13 years before I was able to come back to the program. And we had kind of gotten Clintondale into what Marine City had then went really into the next realm. They had kind of overtaken Marysville, and they were always in the regional final, it seemed like. Where, we were then chasing the Mariners a little bit, and we weren't very successful. A couple of times we ran some, lightning into a bottle, but, just in that climb with that Orchard Lake St. Mary's, how they said, Drew, was it 33-3 in those 3 years, 34-3 in those 3 years?
That sounds about right.
34-3.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
In Orchard Lake St. Mary's, which, had this kids staying in, dormitories. They had the pick of the litter of Oakland County players. We had the pick of the litter of 26 Mile Road and King Road. So, I mean, that's, just kind of amazing if you think about it.
If I can comment.
Go ahead.
I was always asked after I retired, and of course, all you guys right there, like when they went to the state finals, Tony's first time and the second time, and then Ron, and of course, Darren, and they said, well, how do you feel about that? And I'm always thrown back by that because, these are the best friends that I have. I said, no one would be more happy than me, Jerry Workentine, and everyone else that's associated with the program. I just found that very interesting, but these guys know, and I'm so proud of what they accomplished. And when we worked together, I think they will attest, we had a lot of fun. We horsed around a lot, worked hard. Worked those kids hard.
That up. You asked why we all stayed, and kept doing it. God darn, I think what we had on the field was rare, and I think what we had off the field was extremely rare. Our families all got along great. Our kids got along great. It was a social event. There was no bullshit, no one jealous of anybody doing this or that. We had our moments on the phones during the game, and that would be done and over. That's what I remember. And that's why I coach now. People ask why I coach. I coach because those guys are my friends, and I have fun on Friday nights with Darren and Andy and all those guys. That's why I coach. Those are my friends.
Well, with what you just said, I hope you know that even though you've never talked about that with us as players, and I know I played so long ago. You've had many, many players through that time. That's how we feel too. We do not see this as my accomplishment or my victory or my district championship medal. That's not how these kids around here think. It's not how their parents thought, because their parents were the players before they were in this program. It's just how these people in our community here in Marine City think. They are very unselfish that way. And I think that is an uncommon trait. I think it's instilled. I think it's instilled greatly in part by you three, and it's instilled by a town that has great work ethic, that always has. But that is how everybody really thinks in Marine City, and maybe, and you know what? I'm not afraid to mention that, because you know why? Most people can't do that. The disease of me takes over. They are just going to get resentful or jealous or whatever the case may be. We just don't get that way over there.
Well,
I just think it's the truth to that.
It was touched on earlier, Coach, that and I think Coach Scarcelli said it when a lot of coaches are kind of tight vested. They didn't want to share information or bring the guy up that could be the replacement. But you really, I mean, Coach Bob, that was very progressive because now it's commonplace. You want your bench filled because you're going to move up and on to the next opportunity or whatever, and your replacement's right there. But back in the day, oh no, you were going to take my job, so I'll only tell you what you need to know. But it sounds, I mean, you didn't operate like that, and that's huge. But I did have a question for you, and I Coach, I know Coach Hill, you had this on here, but I wanted to know what did you have to really work hard to get buy-in to your philosophies and system, or was it pretty much plug and play?
To me?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Okay. I think it was a little bit of both. I like Tony said, Jerry established, really some great groundwork at Marine City. Those kids knew how to practice, and it may sound silly, but my first year at Deckerville, they had no clue how to practice. They went through 6 coaches, and it took a year or two really to establish just simple things like that. We changed things when we came in. We just felt that you've got to teach what you know, and Tony did a great job of adjusting. They went from the 4 to the 5 on defense. But I think what it really comes down to, we struggled with Marysville, and it really came down to you kind of have to have a signature win. The kids are very respectful, work very hard. But I think, we got to the playoffs with Riverview and then beat Oxford, which was, rated, I think, first in the state. I think from there on out, I think we can, it kind of solidified right there.
That makes sense.
It seems like our signature wins. We also had another monster that came into the league there in the late 80s, early 90s in Emily City. And during that time, Jim Watkins, and he had some players rolling through there. The Granada kid was the state's all-time leading rusher there for a spell. They went to the state final in 1993. The year after, Marysville had won the state championship. They lost to Kingsford in a good football game. That was our signature victory. We beat Emily City. We were like their only loss for a couple of years.
I think that
really helped us propel into there and get us a playoff spot.
I think it was great that they came in because it let us see that, by gal, you could beat Marysville. I thought it was great that they came in.
Absolutely.
Well,
take it out of Dearborn High School too. Those are a lot of playoff points. We all became aware of how you accumulate playoff points in that era where playoff points really, really mattered. You either got into, you could be 9-0 and not enough. And Coach, you went 9-0 at Deckerville and didn't have enough playoff points one year, didn't you?
Correct. If I just say real quick, when I was at Deckerville, we played Brown City, and Watkins was the coach there. I had never seen the wing team. He didn't score half 100, but he was close. So I saw him, and he taught me the offense. So, and he said, well, Deckerville and Brown City will never play again. So he goes to Emily City, and then, of course, I go to Marine City, and we're running the same offense with the same audibles. And that's where Ron comes in, because he says we have to change our audibles. And we did a lot of that. And I give him credit for that because we just couldn't use our typical language because their kids knew that. So it's kind of ironic how things fall into place there.
You had mentioned doing some things differently right there, Coach. And Coach Glodich, we're going to ask the same thing of Coach Scarcelli in a minute. What did you do that was just a little bit of a wrinkle that was Coach Glodich's imprint on that offense?
Yeah, I'm struck we made in the offense, and I want to backtrack for a second and just talk about, practice. I think one of the keys to the Mariner program is how Bob taught us how to establish a practice plan and how to literally to the minute you had things organized in your practice and the sequencing of the practice and how you teach things from one day to the next. I really believe that, that has been one of the main pillars of why the Mariner program has been so successful, as Coach Bob taught us how to organize the practice, and it was incredible. And then I I've been always a tinkerer. You know, I'm a science teacher, and I always like to tinker and to play with things. And we started to change formations a little bit. We tried to use a little bit more play action, and we actually got to the point where our formations became so lengthy that it was a difficult challenge to call the play from the box to Bob into the field. So we went to a numbering system where I would just simply call down a number, and the kids had wristbands, and the quarterback would have a wristband, and Bob would just have to yell out a number. Now that was great as far as efficiency goes, but it also pissed off Coach Bob once in a while because what the hell are you calling? What do we got going here? He wouldn't know once in a while what play we would have going, and to be able to see the numbers. But that was the transition there. And just like any good successful program, you have to evolve a little bit, and you find out why people are stopping you or what they're doing to stop you. And then you try to throw a curveball when they think something's coming. And the offense continues to evolve because Darren's got that kind of mind as well.
He sure does. He sure does. And he is, and you know this. I mean, Coach Letson's a couple of years younger than me. He came up when I was a senior. I think he came up for the playoff run, and then he had his 2 years thereafter. And he was a fine athlete at Marine City, excellent baseball player, good tight end for the program, and as devout of a Mariner as there ever has been. I mean, he bleeds black and orange. You know, he truly loves. He is the right guy, and for that spot, he loves it so much. Not that we all don't, we all do, but I mean, he is the guy. I mean, this kid just bleeds black and orange. I just called him a kid. He's 47 years old. He's not a kid, but Coach Scar, what was the little wrinkle that you had added, in the 2004 when you took it over?
Oh, and four, I think the main thing for me was, don't screw it up. We really had a really good class coming up. That was Joe Wesley, Fosher, Brendan Kay. So, get these guys lined up right. Teach them simple things. I'm a really, as far as on my side of the ball, I'm a real stickler for just keeping it simple to keep us aggressive. Ron said, Ron will give you 48 million formation, but run 7 plays out of it. And I'm a little different. I try to keep things simple, but it was great having a guy like Matt Pollock who like to think outside the box a little more than I did. So kind of the yin to the yang. As far as a wrinkle, I just think back, if there's any wrinkle that I ever contributed, it was so simple dealing with Marysville, because say what you want, and all three of us agree, if it wasn't for Marysville being our white whale, this program isn't where it's at, because we were obsessed. We were obsessed with getting them. And sometimes I always wonder, was it more fun being the hunter or the hunted? Because by golly, we relished that. But the simple adjustment was Marysville was we had to beat the living crap out of their tight ends. Their tight ends dictated that whole offense. And, we finally figured out that we have to have our biggest, nastiest son of a gun at defensive end, because they're going to try to hook them. They're going to run a 46 off tackle trap, and they're going to man block our end because they don't think you can deal with them. And I think once we started dealing with our tight ends, as simple as it was, that they couldn't do things to us. And but to Marysville, all the credit in the world. And I give us for our persistence, because when we all start coaching together, their staff is like ours now. I look at our staff now. We got 5 guys on staff with 20 or more years at Marine City. They had the same thing, and Bob's going into playing those with, he has 10 years. He's got 2 idiots with a couple years on it. We had no shot. But that's what just the experience and the staff. It's so much. I tell people, we could someone could pull us out of bed in February and say, hey, you're coaching tomorrow, and we'd be ready to go, where no other, a lot of other staffs would have no idea what to do. We'd be ready to go. And like I said, my biggest contribution in 05 and beyond was not screwing it up. but let these guys coach. I remember hearing some, the way to display your power, if you have power, is to relinquish some of it. So I thought I delegated a lot of stuff to a lot of guys, and Bob, once me and Ron figured it out, he let us do it. And I think that's how coaches get better, is you have to give them responsibility. And I think with Pollock and Dave Wilson, hell, Ron, I really said anything to him. Just maybe a couple of times during the game, we had the game won, and he's doing some crazy stuff. I told him, if you throw the ball again, I'm going to punch you. But other than that, good, But I think my strength was trying to keep it simple.
Hey, Andy.
Yeah.
Can I just inject something?
Absolutely.
Sure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
We did go to a platoon system after a while, which I thought was beneficial. We split them up, 27 on one side, 27 on the other. Tony and Ron, both had the kids. But I think what evolved out of that was obviously playing a lot of kids, and they're only doing one thing except you're exceptional athletes. But our special teams became just incredible. I mean, Ron was in charge of the kickoff or kick return, and he could probably tell you about the starburst because he brought it in. And then Tony's punt returns, and they would be able to tell you how many touchdowns we scored. But we just became so much better on that because you can play your best players because you're playing so many other kids on both sides of the ball on offense and defense.
Absolutely. And I know that Walt Braun did that at Marysville too. And that was a staple of their program, was the 2 platoon system. And there's just, it's unequivocal. There's kids that would not have played much for Marine City football that were good football players on playoff teams, that starter type players, whether they're an offensive tackle, a nose guard, whatever, whatever position they may have, a wing, that may not have played a lot had you gone with what they do even in some of these schools with 2,000 kids, which is they play about 20 of them total. And I 100%, coach. I think there's no doubt about it. More Mariners make the Mariners better, and I think you're absolutely right.
I spoke at a clinic after we won a state championship in 2007, and they wanted me to speak on our special teams. And I added it up since Ron brought the Starburst in to Marine City from, say 1991 or whatever, till I spoke at that clinic in 2007. We had scored 94 special team touchdowns, giving up like 4. I mean, that's just ridiculous. 94-4. I mean, that's unheard of. But that's what it was. I couldn't believe when I looked it up because, every year we won back 4 or 5, and then, you add that up for 16 years, that adds up.
Oh, 100%, 100%. And, the Starburst return, what I always used to hear in Kalamazoo was, when I would say, where are you from? Marine City. Oh, you're that team with the black arm pads. And then these are people from Otsego, Michigan. And just a little mystique, that kind of that Mariner mystique, and with things like obviously the offense, which is not strayed completely away. I mean, it's the fabric and the identity in many ways of the program that way. That is as well too. And Darren runs a 3-ring circus as far as an extra point. I mean, you do not know what's coming at you anymore. It could be triple reverse jet sweep pass. He's got a repertoire of smoking aces when it comes to kicking an extra point now. That match is almost it's the extra point version of the Starburst. So I mean, yeah, those kinds of things. I think that helps get buy-in too. And it's also the staple of the program, which is so cool.
Hey, before we wrap this up, I'd like to ask you, Coach Glodich, specifically about the book. I mean, this is great hearing this story. Some of these I have not heard before, and it's really fascinating to me. But when did you feel like maybe I want to write a book at some point? When inspired you at some point to get to that level?
Well, these guys will attest that it was a running joke through all our years that anytime a bizarre incident happened, for example, we had to wear knee braces one year. Our superintendent decided we had to wear knee braces. And his knee braces are on backwards, and he's walking with stiff legs. And Coach, I just can't get used to these braces. Well, Jack, you got him on backwards. That's the problem. You have him on backwards. So anytime something bizarre like that would happen, or we'd have an interchange with an official, which I had a few, or if we had an exchange with the player during the game, going in the book. So it was a running joke that I was going to write a book. And then when I retired, I reached to a publisher and I sent her some writing samples, and it had nothing to do with Marine City football. And she liked the writing samples, and she threw it back on my lap, and she said, "Have you ever thought about your coaching career or your coaching experience?" And I said, "Not really. Seriously, we joked about it." And she said, "Well, why don't you write down a chapter and just see how it goes?" And I wrote the first chapter, and she loved it. And she said, "You got to do this. Before you do anything else, you got to write about this one, because you have the experience, and you're going to get some attention just based on your program's experience." So she kind of led me down that train, and I'm glad she did. And Susan Sember is her name. I'm very happy to share the story. And part of it is the 2013, but also part of how the program evolved. I'm proud to share that story, because I think some people have been just tagged in on the end of this run, and they don't understand the beginning of the run. So that I'm proud of.
Makes sense. Hey, gentlemen, can't thank you all enough for joining the show. Really great hearing some of the stories and really getting some of your insights on this, and just great accomplishments building this program up. I can remember being in Pine River Elementary, seeing some of the Marine City Mariners come to our school that just made the playoffs, and we were enthralled. We were like, "Oh my gosh, this is huge!" So we had a couple guys at each lunch table. I still remember this, and it was really cool. I mean, the whole community got fired up about it right then, and you guys have just taken the ball and run with it, literally and figuratively. So really appreciate you all coming on the show. Again, let's talk about the book. The book's coming out on the 19th, the national release date, A Run to the River. Author, head coach, Ron Glodich. Cannot wait to get this one. And it's going to be available nationwide, so everyone will be able to get it on the 19th. So thank you, Coach Bob and Coach Scarcelli and Coach Glodich, for joining us. Coach Shield, take us home.
Thank you, Drew.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm just a guy that really I was lucky enough to have a dad that was really into sports and believed in the program and really believed in these three guys big time. He'd been around a little bit by that point in time, and he was very close with Coach Workington. They came into the district roughly at the same time, and they were of the same age. And he had just they were good friends, and Coach Workington was just so excited about these guys coming, and my dad truly believed, and he knew this I would be playing for them. And to say that these three guys are a
Mr. Mount Rushmore, Marine City, right? That's what you said.
Well, but to say that they're not mentors and role models of myself, that I would be remiss to say that. I mean, I am very much here today doing this podcast because of these three guys. And I do what I've done for the last 29 years because of these three guys. And there's a little piece of this program over on the west side of the state still today in Kalamazoo or in Portage. There's a little piece of this program down on 15 Mile Road. There still is. We add little elements that they liked, and I do believe Dave and Jason still are doing down there at Clintondale. So, I mean, three guys, this is going to go a long way. And we've done a lot of these episodes. We've done a lot of fun things, but this has been just an absolute delight. Thank you so much.
All right, guys.
Thank you, Andy. Drew.
Thanks, gentlemen. For Coach Andy Shield, I'm Drew. Take care, everybody. Get the book, A Run to the River, September 19th release date. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, Andy.
This has been the Sports Peninsula Podcast. To subscribe to the podcast, simply click the subscribe button on our YouTube channel's homepage and give us a like. You can also follow our audio podcast on multiple platforms, including Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, and Google Podcasts, just to name a few. Give us a follow on Twitter. Our handle is @SportsPPodcast to check out our latest releases. Thank you again for watching and for your support. Remember, when you want to hear all about sports in the great state of Michigan, there is only one Sports Peninsula Podcast.